Welcome to the Smoke and Rope podcast. This is Ryan Basore, your host, and today we are on episode 25, and we are excited to have Rick Thompson on. He was episode 8, and now back for episode 25. We're going to be doing a year-end review, what we think about what happened in Michigan marijuana over the last year in criminal justice, and then Rick is also going to start off the show here in a second with his Michigan cannabis news, which is an awesome segment that he's been doing, and you can hear it from Rick, but something in 2021 I think we'll be seeing a lot of, keep everyone up to date. So with that, I want to introduce my co-host, as always, Kevin at Truu Cannabis. Kevin, thanks for being on, and Happy New Year.
Thanks, buddy. Happy New Year to you as well. Hope you had a good Christmas.
Yeah, I did, and happy birthday to you yesterday as well.
Thank you, sir, and happy birthday to you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. And then Tom over at Real Leaf. Tom, Happy New Year.
Gentlemen, Happy New Year.
All right. And Rick Thompson, just a quick introduction.
Oh. That's fantastic. Normally I have to do that for myself. So not touching Rick, that one.
Yep. So Rick, we kind of briefly episode 8. I know everyone's want to go back and listen to the long history of Rick Thompson. Could go on forever in Michigan marijuana. I met Rick 11 years ago, basically now, and been involved in a lot of the same organization causes over the year, and I'm just excited to have Rick back on. And 2021, here we are. It's we're saying 10 years in Michigan. Now we're getting into the next decade, and what's the next 10 years in Michigan look like? Because the first 10 for me were quite wild and fulfilling as well. So, Rick, introduce yourself, and let's do this week's cannabis news, and let's get into the year in review.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks very much for having me on today at Smoke and Rope. I'm Rick Thompson. This is the cannabis news broadcast on Smoke and Rope today. Why don't we get right into it? You know, the cannabis industry loves Joe Biden's win as president of the United States of America. At least the cannabis business industry loves it. Prior to the election, the U.S. cannabis mergers and acquisitions market was drier than a Mike Pence joke. And investment capital was harder to find than Mitch McConnell's heart. But since the presidential race has been decided once and for all, the business industry is heated back up. Yahoo Finance reports $600 million in deals in just one single day. And the big news is, same old story, cannabis giants gobbling up in-state cannabis companies, most notably Air Industries grabbing some Florida and New Jersey retail outlets. And we've reported on the cannabis news in the past about a Canadian merger that would make the planet's largest cannabis business entity. That's Tilray and Aphria merging together, and that was announced on December 16. MJ Business Daily reports AltMed and Verano have planned a merger, also announced since the election too. Verano, by the way, valued at $2.8 billion. Now, the industry likes stability in the leadership position, and the industry sees a Democratic presidency as a sign of normalcy returning to the White House, apparently. Now, speaking about that heartless Tin Man in the Senate, Mitch is on record as having opposed every effort at banking reform for the cannabis industry made in 2020. Now, that's 3 bills containing federal cannabis banking reform, and them all passed by the U.S. House, none of them receiving a vote in the Senate. Mitch continued his multi-year jihad against the cannabis industry by blocking the pandemic relief package, partially because of banking reforms for the cannabis industry, holding it up until they were removed. He even sent a press release to brag about the bill's lack of a cannabis component. Now, the USA has reported 3 straight quarters. The number of banks serving cannabis industry businesses has shrunk, not grown. So more than just not wanting to acknowledge state legal cannabis industries, McConnell's also taken a stand against transparency. The Safe Banking Act included provisions requiring the USA to track how many businesses in the cannabis sector were owned by women or people of color. Well, that's a no-go per the current Senate Majority Leader, who knows that diversity will be forced upon the industry if the true composition of its beneficiaries is known to all. Now, he referred to the banking reforms and transparency efforts as a left-wing wish list. Now, that comes regardless of the fact the Safe Banking Act had bipartisan support in the House, and a bipartisan group of state treasurers earlier this year asked Congress to move on this issue too. Now, 2021 might be more of the same, or it could be an entirely different ball game. Come on, Georgia. Let's talk about one more Washington, D.C. insider who knows nothing about the thing. That's Rand Paul. And for 3 years in a row now, he's bemoaned cannabis actions because he publishes a yearly list of grievances. Yeah, that list of grievances. The accomplished and well-known Kentucky senator follows the guidelines from the fictional Festivus celebration, which originated on the fictional Seinfeld show, where followers of the non-existent holiday get to run their mouths about everything that bothered them for the past 12 months. Rand Paul decided to take a shot at a $3 million cannabis study, and it's a use study from the San Francisco area looking at edible consumption by seniors in the Bay Area. Rand Paul wrote that researchers, quote, must not have spent a lot of time around people who love cannabis. You do not need to pay them to talk to seniors. Now, it may be true for other segments of society, but with senior citizens, they use cannabis despite a stigmatized view of marijuana, especially by their fellow seniors. Now, his last year comment on Mitch McConnell is priceless, though. Rand Paul described telling McConnell how hemp and cannabis are different. Mitch was very concerned that people could smoke hemp and get high. I told him, well, maybe, said Rand Paul, but it would have to be the size of a telephone pole. Rand Paul says, I think he's still confused. Speaking of McConnell, I think so too, Senator Paul. He's confused on many different things. And the last story of this year, 2021 may be the year of the cannabis regulator, if the CANRA organization has anything to say about it. Now, CANRA is the Cannabis Regulators Association, and yesterday they announced 5 more state cannabis program administrators are joining their group. That makes 24 state regulators in that group now, and more are likely to be added over the next year. The group includes MRA Director Brisboe as a vice president. In fact, he wrote in a press release yesterday, CANRA's work identifying and developing best practices, the practices that safeguard public health and safety, and that they promote regulatory certainty for industry participants. Curious phrase. The group also announced the formation of 15 committees designed to pool experience and make recommendations for federal law reform in the cannabis sector. Now, consumer advocates like myself are concerned that people whose focus is protecting businesses shouldn't be formulating policy and procedure in the absence of cannabis consumer input, which is a frequent criticism leveled at the Marijuana Regulatory Agency here in Michigan. Well, 2021 is sure to be an interesting year for the cannabis sphere, regardless of how the planet deals with the pandemic crisis. This has been the Cannabis News on Smokin' Rope Podcast. Thanks for listening. Back to you, Ryan.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Excellent. No, that's
Fantastic.
yeah, I love listening to that every week. It's a great summary and a great update, and keep it going, man. Keep it going.
A little sassy. We got
Yeah.
the barbecue sauce. A little spicy.
Yeah. So, Rick, if you'd like to start off, I know you got a little bit of a list of things, big news in the year of Michigan 2020. What do you think's at the top of the list, or if you want to start any way you want?
Well, I think when we're in the state of Michigan, we talk about 2020. It's impossible to talk about the year without talking about the pandemic. But in relation to the way the cannabis industry is operated, being designated an essential industry was monstrous. Not just monstrous for maintaining businesses and employment throughout the growing industry, which could have really been just gut punched if they had taken not given that designation. But the fact that going forward, now the rest of Michigan realizes we're just exactly as important as healthcare workers and some of the other people that were designated as essential services too. For an industry who was always struggling for legitimacy, even amongst people who used, but maybe used in the closet, man, that's the A+ rating from our teacher that we needed to take home on our report card to show mom and dad. I mean, that's the one thing that I think will help to turn around a lot of people's attitude about cannabis going forward into 2021.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear from Tom and Kevin on that instance. You know, both of these guys are growers, and they were able to stay open and work and keep building their businesses. And what was that like for you guys? Because I'm sure it's scary at times, but then I'm extremely thankful of what we've been able to do this year.
You go ahead first, Kevin.
Yeah. No, the one thing that I did notice is that, for years and years and years when we were doing lobbying and we were trying to change perception of the public, um, what we tried to do was associate our brand, our name, our association with other brands that are public, generally recognized. So we tried our best when we went to fundraisers to get on the board with the other fundraisers, and so we'd be next to AT&T and Comcast or whatever, and start to kind of become the norm. And this is just a perfect example of it actually happening and coming to fruition. For us to be deemed essential workers, no longer can anybody say much about the cannabis industry and its legitimacy. I mean, it's the cat's out of the bag, and I think we're making our way over that hump. For so many years we had resistance at every corner, from other industries, from politicians, and to see this now happen, it's just absolutely great.
Yeah, it was really frightening actually at first when we were unsure if we would be deemed essential. We had stockpiles of cans and we were going to be living here, on the farm because, the ladies need to drink every day. They need to eat and they need the love. And so there were a few of us that are like, if we have to hunker down, we're going to hunker down. But luckily we had that, like you're saying, the legitimacy of, at least they're seeing that we have, a very important job to do, and it allowed us to grow where other industries were not. Where other people were laying people off, we actually started providing full benefits, medical benefits at the time of COVID for our employees, and really that kind of jump started that whole thing. Is like we need to make that next jump. We need to make sure that everyone's protected if something were to happen. So we're like, all right, let's bring in Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were great to work with. So, that was really helpful for us and to give our employees a peace of mind too. And, everyone's super happy to be, working during a time where, yeah, it might have been great to take home like $900 a week, but when that runs out and you don't have a job, then it doesn't do you any good, and for us, it was, it saved our asses really. And like you're saying, it's legit. It just legitimizes what we're doing. Absolutely.
And I know I'm extremely thankful for, the opportunity to build a business this year and to work, and when other people haven't been able to, I never take that for granted. And but as far as like the getting more like named essential and like just more and more people, it's funny. It's still happening. Like, I've had some swings. Like, I used to go to networking events in Lansing, and when I started all this, and I was like the crazy marijuana guy, and people knew it, and I was an outcast. Now, you go to a networking event, like say pre-COVID, especially just happening early in the year, and everyone wants to talk to the marijuana guy now about it and get involved, and then. I've been kicked out of banks, and we all have for many times for a decade now. And I got kicked out of a bank for selling to flipping a property to a marijuana business, and I got kicked out of Morgan Stanley. I got kicked out of E-Trade, and so that was all this year. But then I had to give a shout out because I had something a great experience for me this morning. I was at Dart Bank and was in there. I go in the Frander location, and I'm used to banks kicking me out and not wanting me, and and like you got to be quiet about marijuana, but they were coming out and introducing themselves, and they a lot of the Dart Bank bankers would listen to the show. So thanks guys, that was cool. It's that's part of becoming essential, and having businesses like that embrace cannabis. So that's
Nicole and her team at Dart Bank are awesome, man. They've really been helpful to us for sure.
Yep. No, thanks.
But one of the things we're going to see as a challenge going forward into 2021, it's probably the worst story from 2020, and that's the number of municipalities willing to accept new cannabis businesses. We interviewed Director Brisboe on my show 420 Post just 3 weeks ago, and he said there are only 85 municipalities currently accepting adult use businesses in the state of Michigan, and there are more than 1,700 municipalities in the state. So being deemed an essential service should go a long way towards making some of those council members who are sort of waffling, maybe they will, maybe they won't, being an essential service as dictated by the governor, I think that helps to lend legitimacy to our efforts. And perhaps 2021 will be easier of a year for us to have convincing new communities to open up their doors to our industries.
I think you're right, Rick. I'm seeing it. There was just an election too, so there was a lot of different townships and municipalities that had, some turnover, and like people are gonna like the budgets, it's gonna come a calling where, all right, it's time to balance your budget, and there's a lot of different revenue streams that some of these municipalities are not going to get because of COVID, or they're going to be a lot smaller. So I think there's going to be a lot more. I think we're gonna see it. I think we see it at least double this year, if not more than that. That's a guess, but I think I know of some that are previously I would have said never, super conservative, that have new people in there considering it. So yeah, it'd be good. Needs to be more.
The whole process of creating ordinance law has been inhibited in 2020 because we can't get it together for normal city council or planning and zoning meetings. Things have gone virtual. Some meetings have just been completely canceled because it's impossible for them to do the tech to get it right and still be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah.
So I think that there would have been more in 2020 coming to our side if
Agreed.
things had all been equal. Now, if things get better in 2021, the way that we're all anticipating that they will, I think maybe a cork pops off the champagne bottle, so to speak, especially if those checks start coming out the first of 2021. And I'm not talking about pandemic checks. I'm talking about the payments from the Marijuana Regulatory Agency on the funds that were collected from taxation, right? So you get 10% tax. It's divided up amongst different things, including the municipalities who get a piece of it. Once that starts coming in and people see that this is a real revenue generator, not just something people have been talking about, I think that makes a big difference too.
Well, I think 2021 we're also going to see the year of the ballot initiative. We've already saw it in Livingston County where I live. They targeted Pinckney strategically because of its voting record on marijuana, and they got that successfully through. And then these lawyers are working strategically through these counties, so they're targeting an area. They know that as soon as Pinckney is approved, that's going to have a domino effect across the county. They're not going to allow Little Pinckney to be the only one that generates revenue from marijuana sales. So I think that's going to be a big factor as well. But we'll have to see how this rolls out with COVID. I don't think that collecting ballot signatures door to door is going to be an option, or collecting them, at events like we have in the past. So I could see there being a potential for some kind of rule change on that. I'm not sure what they're going to do moving forward, but that ought to be interesting to pay attention to.
Yeah, there needs to be a push for educating municipalities. We've talked about this a few times, but I think there's a lot of misinformation out there exactly how this money is distributed back, especially now since everything was written. A lot of ordinances were written based upon the MMFLA law that's changed now with the MRTMA law has changed how it's divided up. It's not divided up with just the sheer number of cannabis businesses you have. It's based upon retailers now. So just allowing all grows in your municipality, you're not going to see that money in. And I think there needs to be, more discourse and more, conversations happening that, hey, this is, maybe we're going to guide people and make a smarter ordinance, and, hopefully with what Director Brisboe is doing. And I know there are a few other private companies that are going around trying to help people understand, what's happening and how to actually draw up an ordinance that makes sense, that you're gonna benefit, and at the same time balancing a healthy industry.
For some of our viewers who may not know, when the MMFLA program was created, it created a tax which would have benefited local communities. And then when we initiated the legalization proposal, the MRTMA, that did away with that medical tax. So now at this point, communities that have medical marijuana MMFLA only facilities are not really receiving any revenue back through the taxation model. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to encourage people to go to the MRTMA program. One of the reasons that the townships are so confused is because of the the Townships Association. For a long time, the Michigan Townships Association went around and convinced communities that they did not want these businesses there, that they were nothing but trouble, that the selection process was bad, that the money wasn't really there to return your invested time. And a lot of people took that to heart. Now the Michigan Townships Association seems to be switching their tune a little bit, and maybe we have some additional help from that corner.
Yeah, we've been battling the Townships Association, the Municipal League, the PAM for all these years. Just it's been pretty wild watching how when you hear, oh, Township Association, they have the township's best interest at heart, and you think, no, it's just a completely political agenda driven thing, which I guess I'm understanding that's the way it works now. But for a while there, just from the outside looking in, it was just it was disheartening to see these guys lying, just like the Prosecutors Association.
It's interesting that until you really look at politics from the inside out, that you would be unaware of these associations, and to me it's counterintuitive to what is supposed to happen with the process. To me, when you're in an elected position that is for enforcing rules or being a voice of the people, you shouldn't be out lobbying for things like that. To me, where are you getting your funding from to lobby? The state police, the county sheriff's association, they have full-time lobbyists in Lansing lobbying their objectives all day, every day. How does that happen? So I think it's really interesting. I had a phone call, and I bought one of those stickers one time. The county sheriff, and you put it on the back of your car that you supported the sheriff association,
So you don't get pulled over.
Yeah, so I don't get pulled over. And then the next year they called, and I got to thinking, and I thought, I'm going to ask them, do they give political contributions? Because I'm interested. Am I giving money to this fund that's supposed to be like help fallen officers, and do they actually give political contributions? And as it turned out, they did. And that's when I stopped my contribution to the Police Officers Association when it came to, because they pitch it as it's for fallen soldiers and to help families and all this stuff like that. But the reality is it's a political fund to basically lobby against what we do. So, interesting things.
I'll say that in that interview I mentioned with Director Brisboe from a couple weeks ago, he did say that the MRA was going to try and help municipalities by coming up with several let's call them sample ordinances or draft ordinances that they could put forth to different communities that would allow them to embrace, either just retailers or the full spectrum of retail of regulated facilities. I'm encouraged by that. I'd like to see the MRA actually try and help some of these communities come to the right place, because they're the recognized authority on the subject matter. So for them to remain silent about this was really odd all that time.
Yeah, and to avoid all those lawsuits with all these just crazy ordinances like Traverse City and Acme and
Warren.
East Lansing and Warren and Meridian Township. There's just and then even Lansing to overdo it. There's a simple guideline, and then the state sets the rules. It's pretty simple, but
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, everyone's got to feel important.
Is we're dealing with a situation here in Michigan, which is recognized as one of the most corrupt in the United States of America, especially when you talk about the state legislature. I'm not just spouting off. This is verified, and you can check it out on CNN or Wall Street Journal if you'd like. And local communities are just as bad. So you have somebody who knows somebody who can make a meeting with somebody, and you have pancakes and coffee, and all of a sudden you're the only guy in town that's going to get a license because you talk to the right guy. Well, that's not proper process, and that's not the way things are supposed to go. So when communities like Warren do stuff like that, they get sued. So, sometimes cities they fall into their own traps. We can't let them escape responsibility for being bad at the business of running.
Yeah, no kidding. What was a lot. There's a lot of big wins for marijuana in 2020 nationally. Something I wanted to talk about too, Rick. What do you think? Give us a little breakdown on that. I know Montana. Was it South Dakota? Now it's been a while. Arizona, and then Mississippi went medical.
Yeah, Mississippi went medical, but they had to vote twice with a yes in order to get one medical program. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and then so moving forward with that, I mean that was huge, and more wins, teaching the public that cannabis is a winning issue, and also a lot of wins in criminal justice reform as well. Michael Thompson just got his clemency, and he's going to be getting it out. We just talked about that, and just as far as the expungement bill in Michigan. All over the country now, people are backing it completely. It's real exciting.
Well, if you look at the MORE Act, MORE, the E in the MORE Act was expungement. So this is a MORE Act was passed by the United States House of Representatives, and it's historic for many reasons, one of which is that it actually calls for the complete descheduling of cannabis, the removal of cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. And that's an entire House of Congress that said that's a good idea. First time ever that that's happened. But to embrace the concept of expungement on a statewide level, I've been a couple brave places have done it. But to do that federally, that would be big. That would be really big, because that would require states that don't want cannabis businesses to still have people whose damaged lives were being repaired, even though their local state legislature might not think that that's valuable. So we can exceed some of the hurdles that we see on a statewide level by doing things federally, but we have to be careful, because the MORE Act also eliminates people from the cannabis industry federally that should be protected and respected. So I hate to say it, it's almost like we have a chocolate covering on a bitter pill every single time when it comes out of a legislature. Every time.
It is. Yeah, that's, oh man. Thinking about the market this year and what we've seen in Michigan, and from the start of it, I tried to launch and was stymied by the pandemic, and I had a factory. My packaging was coming out of Wuhan, and tried to beat Chinese New Year, and next thing you know, it took me till June. And I watched it evolved in 6 very short months from, everyone taking as much as they can at a time, and easy to sell, to the point where we just felt it over the last month and a half, where it's becoming a pretty, regular supply chain. So many new growers are in it. So really interesting to watch. I feel real grateful to get in when I did, and to learn with these guys here, and Drew and Sam as well. But what I'd like the perspective from, especially Tom, starting off, like you've been in the industry selling for a while, and so has Kevin. But like, what's it been like with riding that wave and watching that progress?
Oh, it's been wild, man. I think I mentioned last week that our pro forma was based upon half of what we were easily able to get for our flower, and then even then we could have charged $1,000 more a pound, but we didn't. And that was just the beginning of this massive supply shortage that we saw at the very beginning. And like we said last week, the people that played the stupid game of trying to charge way too much and take advantage of people while the supply was low, and you're starting to see the effects of that now as prices start to level off and seek level where it makes sense all around. It's just been a wild ride, and playing the long game does pay off. I mean, this isn't a get rich quick scheme. This is about providing a quality flower for people, for medicine first and foremost, even before it went rec. And this was people charging $4,000 to $5,000 a pound, which is just insane. And we were able as a company to maintain relationships and keep a very nice price, which allowed us to reinvest as a mom and pop company. That's very important to have that flow going without having to borrow. So it was it's just wild, but I'm glad. I'd like to see some stability kind of happen here in 2021. It's kind of hard to make predictions and plan things without knowing, at least where is the level, where is the middle ground here. So, But it's crazy, man. 2020 was wild. 2021, I'm hoping for more sensibility and maybe everyone could chill out a little bit and and things get a little somewhat normal.
What was it like for you, Kevin?
The year in general has been an up and down year. We cut a little bit of slack, just like Tom said, by actually the COVID situation. I have a small company and I only have 4 employees, and so we were chasing our tail, and we've been chasing our tail for a long, hard amount of time. And so to kind of have the calls stop coming in from solicitors and people wanting to have meetings and doing political stuff and all that stuff, and just be able to focus on the garden and the business, that was great. It actually helped a ton. We did have a couple of break-ins this year, and those set us back a little bit. But there's always a silver lining in everything, and there were definitely some silver linings in those break-ins. They didn't really get away with much that was valuable in our alarm systems and cameras, and security, and the police responded in a great time, and so it worked out great. But this year's been an up and down year, but I'm really looking forward to 2020 or 2021. We're poised to make some really good moves this year, so super excited for that.
Having the police as an option to call, is just wild to me, right?
Yeah, Tom, I got to tell you, even before we were licensed, we had some break-ins and we had to have interactions with the Lansing police. And I got to tell you, from day one, the guys have been great. They've never been biased towards us. They've never given us a hard time. They've always kind of just let us be and worked with us. So we can't be more thankful to be in a community where we do have that support.
Yeah, we're in the same situation up in Kalkaska. But Lansing's been used to cannabis for some time now.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah.
As we all know, Kevin. I mean, Tom used to be down in the Lansing area, and Rick as well. Now I'm excited for Kevin too, watching a year, and then you guys you bootstrapped it and done it without the opposite model of what we're seeing a lot of these companies in Michigan do, and not taking on debt, and almost there with your processing and your new Class C. So it's exciting. It'll be a big year for all of us. So that was fun to watch that. And Rick, what about you? What's it like watching the market from your point of view? And I guess let's just start talking about our years a little bit, if you'd like. Reflect on it and what we're kind of happy, thankful for, and go from there.
Well, let me just throw out a statistic. That interview with Director Brisboe, he revealed there's about 440,000 cannabis plants in the system here in Michigan in the regulated market at any given time. So when you start talking about that volume of plants, then supply is definitely a concern, whether there's stability in the supply chain. We talked about only 85 communities that have said yes to recreational facilities. Saying yes doesn't mean that you open your doors the very next day. There's build outs, there's a delay and lag time. So it's a real concern. When I look at the national and international markets, I'm incredibly impressed by the international market, and I'm kind of saddened by our national market. Here in the United States, we are losing ground internationally to, in my personal opinion, lesser nations that should not be gaining economic advantage over us in an industry essentially that we created, that we've revolutionized. So I'm wishful that we're able to do more like other nations have been. But by the same token, I mean, there's nobody that does things the way that we do here in America. We've got 50 different states. We've got 4 different territories. There's a lot of different plans going on out there. And one of the things I get excited about is watching the different proposals coming up from individual states. Expungement on a federal level. Expungement in Illinois was so easy. The governor, with the stroke of a pen, what was it? Thousands of people, Ryan. Thousands.
Yep. Yeah.
No.
And that's big. And actually, that's what I was thinking about that earlier. Sorry to interrupt. Like, expungement at the federal level would be so huge, because the only thing we have for us with federal felonies is presidential pardons, which my new friend Weldon Angelo's got the other day, and I'm trying to get one as hard as I can. We'll see. But you never know. But good point, Rick. I wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
No, you're thanks for saying that. And I also see, problems in other states. that we don't have here in Michigan. In California, they have a problem with pirate grows on national forests and erosion issues that are taking place on public lands that we don't have here in Michigan. So when I look at how other places are solving their own unique problems, it gives me an insight as to what we could be doing here and whether we are doing a pretty good job or whether we could be doing better. And I think in some cases, it's a bit of both. I think we're doing okay. We're an industry leader, but we could also be a little bit more compassionate in the way that we decide rules.
Tom, how was your year, man? Just reflect a little bit. Good living up there in the woods with your great family and running a business.
It's a dream come true, man. I live in paradise. We get to cultivate cannabis all day. Everyone's happy. Everybody loves their job, and we're just a big family. COVID aside, and all of the stuff that's gone along with that. But yeah, it's been truly a blessing. Truly a blessing. We were talking about really quick. I want a side note really quick. We were talking about other countries. Rick, you were talking about other countries. One thing I don't know if anybody noticed was the merger or partnership of Pincana and Tikkun Olam, the Israeli company. If anyone's aware of that, that's kind of like an international type cannabis deal, like partnership. That's kind of seems like it snuck under the radar in some regards, but it's really interesting to see that. And Israel, if people don't know, has been a cannabis leader in the world. They've been first in the world on medical research, and actually they have more licensed medical patients per capita than any country in the world. So that's really exciting to see, but it also is signaling some kind of strange, I don't know what the exact details are behind it. I'm not even going to speculate, but it's definitely signals a really interesting shift in things where people are starting to partner up. There have been a few mergers already with bigger companies and transport and things like that. So, moving on to 2021, I think that's what you're going to keep an eye out for, these people coming in and trying to snatch up their fair share of the market, or not their fair share, but just their share.
Yeah.
As much pie as they can shove in their greedy little face holes.
Right.
That made me think of just the last year with different brands that have come in with hit and misses. We all have our own brands that we're proud of, and we work hard for them, and we feel like they are authentic. And then we've seen other brands do a lot of whether it be the beginning of the year or with Green Peak out there spending $300,000 on billboards attacking caregivers and dangerous medicine. That wasn't good for the brand. But we're also seeing celebrity brands, and I was just on a show with Rick, 420 Post with Darren McCarty, and Darren's a brand that is people are behind and excited about because Darren lives it and believes in it. And he's definitely one of us. And then we're seeing other brands that are like coming in $70 eighths with fancy packaging, and then we find out who grew it. So really interesting. I think this coming year is where brands will definitely make a bigger impact, and we'll see a lot of try and a lot I'm sure fail as well. But what do you think, Rick? You've been watching it, and you've been watching all the brands, and what's your take on the brands this year?
Well, Old Wheezy and Little Cheesy, nobody's buying their stuff. I mean, come on. When you're talking about celebrity performers, there are very few people whose name is recognized across all socioeconomic comparables and all demographic statistics. Tommy Chong is a name. John Sinclair, to a certain degree, is a name. Darren McCarty and Ryan Basore. There are not a whole lot of people in Michigan that can claim that they have an appeal to all age groups. And when young rappers come in, I think there's an expectation on the part of the cultivators that they can really demand a much higher price for that cannabis. But when it comes down to it, if the name doesn't mean anything to you, it's about the quality of the product itself. And I think Ryan's point was some of these high name individuals may be making alliances with people who don't necessarily produce the highest quality product, and therefore their brand will suffer. I think that's one of the beauties of Redemption Cannabis, is that with the team that you got behind you there, Ryan, you just really can't go wrong, because those people know what the hell they're doing. right?
Exactly. Yeah, they do all the hard work. So that was the idea. Just look at it in Lansing, for example, at the Botanical Lansing. There's a garlic juice rec eighth for $35, grown by Real Leaf Solutions, is special. Now that's awesome. People are buying that like crazy because and down the road there's the DNA by SkyMint that's at $70 for an eighth, and I put that up above that on anything. So it's just interesting watching Lansing. We all know the Lansing market and watching new people come in. And Kevin, what are you thinking about as far as some of those brands and what you're thinking of the future with yours?
So what's running through my head right now is that, I don't know if the marijuana market's going to support national brands in the sense that we know it. Budweiser, that took a long time for that to come to fruition and to come to that. And I think that the market has already dictated that people are tired of that garbage. And that's why we've seen microbreweries pop up and thrive so well. People love the microbrewery model. They love the idea of getting something exclusive. And so the marijuana industry actually started the exact opposite. It started off as craft, and it is exclusive. And now you've got these big companies that want to make a national brand and have it under one brand canopy. And people realize that there's no way that it all could be grown the exact same way. It's not chocolate. It's not beer where it's like you can brew it to the exact same recipe every single time. It's marijuana, and marijuana grows differently every single time you grow it. And it's so many factors on how it grows. So I don't know that we'll ever see huge national brands be ultra successful. I think it could be a recipe for disaster. I like the small craft brand idea. I think it's great, and I think that this industry can thrive that way. That's what we're going to continue to do, is to try to produce a product that's superior to what is mass produced, and hope that our product just speaks for itself, and people will recognize.
Just
So
don't forget,
that's
one of the ways that Budweiser got big is through corporate espionage and taking out some of their competitors. So that's the model that a lot of these big guys think they can do. And espionage through the legislature is the way
Yeah.
things happen in Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
I've been somewhat impressed, to be honest with you. I've been in this process though, from basically 2008 on, working to try to get some language. But as weird as it sounds, because I know the statistics that you talked about the state being one of the most corrupt political states based on the way that the voting patterns are of the people in power. But honestly, through this marijuana thing, it's been relatively transparent, and as far as in comparison to what I saw in Colorado. In Colorado, they had these stupid lottery ping pong ball things where, like the big guys got 200 balls and like someone like me would have got one. So there would have been no way in hell I would have got to be able to participate in that system. But here it's been pretty good. As much as I complain about it sometimes, I think it's been really kind of good. And I
once
think
we got rid of the board.
yeah, and they continue to try to slip stuff in all the time, but it's almost like they're afraid of getting caught. So as soon as there's like words or rumblings of that there's a problem, they kind of just immediately back off. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's something that we're gonna be, big news for 2021 is the merging of the acts. If it happens, what's it look like? What kind of shenanigans are these guys going to be playing? There's rumblings of right now. We know there's people wanting to cap the state grows. There's people that want to go after, say, caregivers, hire enough lobbyists to get that passed. And there's no way, like they're newbies. If you think that's going to happen, that's not happening.
Well, there's talk of eliminating caregivers altogether.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
that's a super majority, and
Right.
like go ahead, and I'm sure there's lobbyists telling you they can get that done for you, but good luck. And then and or just trying to funnel more money and get more money to the police, the black market task force. So doing it every which way, but outperforming the market and doing a good product. So I mentioned, there's great flower now in Lansing, in different stores at reasonable prices, and other stores aren't taking heed, but that's how you compete with the illicit market. That's how you do it, and I think we're going to see that increased sales in Michigan, prices coming down, more people coming in, and that's always what we've always dreamed about, seeing that's the right way to do it, and the only way you can do it. That's what history's prevailed. So, wanted to kind of wrap things up here. We could talk about this for hours, of course, but only got into a few subjects, but we'll keep it going. Tom over at Real Leaf, any final thoughts for the year?
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to challenge Rand Paul to a feat of strength and do some Indian leg wrestling, and we'll see what happens there. No, I'm excited to see what the future holds, man. As always, I'm cautiously optimistic, and I know that you just stay on the righteous path with it, and your intentions will prevail. So, and thank you so much for everything. It's been a great year. It's been awesome partnering with you, Ryan, and Kevin and Rick. It's always so good to see you and have a chance to chat. And your wisdom goes beyond what it just blows my mind every time. I love it, and I look forward to speaking to you guys again next week, next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to, thank Rick for being on again. It's always great to have you on the show. Great to chat it up with you. Your wealth of knowledge, like Tom said, and your activism is greatly appreciated. Also, Ryan, great working with you. Tom, great working with you this year. I know we're going to have some really cool things coming out as we work with Truu and get these things coming. It's going to be a lot of fun this year. So I want to wish you guys all a happy New Year. Stay safe, be healthy. And hope for a prosperous one coming up. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Rick, thank you for being on. And what do you got going on for New Year's? And what are you planning next year here?
Well, next year is going to be a recovery year for a lot of us. We're going to try and put our life back together after COVID's kind of ripped it apart. And I was a conference guy, Michigan Cannabis Business Development Group conferences. I did 3 to 4 a year, and hopefully I'll be able to restart that. But if not, the journalism thing, my entrepreneurial activities, maybe start another magazine. I've done that before. The future's so bright, I gotta wear shades. The fact is, though, I'm just really impressed by.
I thought you were going to put them on.
Well, I had them on the other broadcast, but I didn't bring them for this one. Sorry about that. But, the fact is, I'm so excited about the fact that access for cannabis. That's Tom.
Nice Tom.
Tom's got them. Access for cannabis is available for more Americans, and I think that's better for our health and wellness. I think it's better for our tolerance of each other, and I think substituting alcohol with a safer substance that doesn't result in death or addiction is a smart move for the world, and I'm happy that we're part of that. Congratulations to all of you.
Thanks. Can't see a damn thing.
Thank you, Rick.
Rick.
Yeah, thanks for being on, thanks for being on, and then of course thanks Tom and Kevin. What a year, and then doing this podcast, we decided to do it, and now it's 25 weeks in a row, a couple times in pretty rough conditions, but we pulled through. And it's been fun to get the feedback from everybody out there that's been listening. I find it's really just kind of developed into an in Michigan industry podcast that people in the industry or want to get in it or are listening to. And just like at Dart Bank today, and the guys over at Manor, and some of the different license holders that reach out, it's cool. So I thank everyone for listening on that, and we've got we're going to try to make it better next year and continue to have these great guests. And then as far as everything else, I'm really excited about all the criminal justice reform that's starting to happen in the country and in the state. And I think 2021 is going to be a giant year for that. It's like we've talked about, it's bipartisan. And then for business as well, I'm eternally grateful. It's been a great year, and I'm going to be expanding with the help of people like these guys, and I'm going to end up having some help before too long. And, the sky's the limit. So, we just made it through the first decade of Michigan marijuana. If you count 2010 when I get in it, I guess that's when I start counting the industry for me. And we're on to the next 10 years. So I cannot imagine what it's going to look like 10 years from now. So it's going to be a fun ride. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for the great year. And see you next week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, fellas.